This is lesson 8 about primarily strings and arrays. So in class we talked about the idea that we can manipulate integers, floats, booleans, strings, but so far what we have done whenever we have had multiple values of such variables is just store them in different variables and do the best job we can. And we discussed the fact that as the number of values increases, the logic in our program becomes more and more complex. We saw the example of the golf scores where we had 3 holes and 3 scores. And it was not so bad asking the user and keeping the scores in 3 variables. But as soon as we have 18 holes or 72 holes, it becomes very cumbersome. Hence the idea of an array. And an array is a collection of values that we keep in one place and we can manipulate more easily. So the way we create an array is by using square brackets and then separating all the values that go into the array with a comma. So we create right now a variable a, so a equal, and then a square bracket to start the array, and then we start populating the array with a variety of numbers, all of them separated by commas, like this. When we're done, we use close square bracket, and when we press enter, Ruby tells us that it has actually recorded this new data type. Is it actually a data type? And the answer is yes. We have seen in the past that we can use the dot operator and the class method to figure out the type of variable we're working with, or the type of value we're working with. As an example, hello.class will return string, meaning that hello is a string. So in this case, if I say a.class, you will notice that it returns array, so it properly interpreted our entering these values in square brackets as an array. What can you do with an array? Well, you can do a lot of different things, and we'll just start exploring them. The first thing you can do is that you can apply the method length to the array to find out how many values are in the array. So if I do a.length, it tells me 9, and that's because there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 numbers in the array itself. So how do you actually access each one of the values inside of the array? You do this with the idea of indices. And the idea of indices is that it is the position of the number in the array starting at 0. This is really key. The very first number in the array is at index or position 0. So to access something at position 0, I use the name of the variable, the name of the array a, and then I open square brackets, and this time I put a position of 0. Notice the ambiguity in, a little bit of the ambiguity in the way we are accessing the values in the array. The square brackets in this case do not indicate us creating an array with the value of 0. There is no a equal, it's a of 0. In other words, give me the 0th, the value which is in the 0th position, or the first position of the array. If I do a of 0, it will give me 34, which is the first value I have in a. If I want the last value in the array, remember that the length is 9, therefore the last index will be 8. It's always the length of the array minus 1. In other words, one thing we could have done is I could have said, give me the item which is at the position a of dot length, that would be 9, minus 1, that would be 8, and that would give me also the same thing. Turns out there's a couple of shortcuts that you can use for accessing values in an array, and particularly the first and last, because it's so useful to do so. You can also do a.first and a.last, And in the case of a.last in particular, what's useful about that is that you don't have to know really the length of the array to use this method. What can you put in an array? Well, you can actually put anything you want. Most of the time, you will want to be putting values that are of same type, either numbers or strings or what have you. Very rarely will you want to put some disparate type of values. So you can create a new array called B, and this time we will put some strings in there. Notice that the strings are all separated with commas once again. ABC, DCE. So here are 4 strings inside of our array, and once again, B of 0 would give me the string hello. It's a whole entity. It's not just the first character of the string. It's the whole string hello is the first element of this array. And similarly, the last element of array B is the string DCE. Just to make the point that you can put things of different values in an array, I can do this, and Ruby will not complain about this, but I think you will find that most of the time this is a limited value. Okay, let's go back to our array of numbers A, and let's talk about some of the other things that you can do with it. One of the things you can do with it is you can actually sort the array. So if I do a.sort, it will actually keep the array, but will actually give me an array with the values ordered from smaller to larger number. What if I wanted to actually go from larger to smaller? Well, we may remember that there was a method for strings that we looked at called reverse, and we can experiment and see that a.reverse actually gives us the values of the arrays in reverse order. So if I want the values to be sorted from larger to smaller, I could actually first sort them and then reverse the order to give me what I want. Other things that you can do with an array. You can actually look at the maximum values of an array, 34. You can look at the minimum values of an arrays, -3. And then what you can also do is that you can check whether a given element is included in the array or exists as a value in the array. So the way you do this is that you use the name of the array, the dot operator, and then the method include question mark. And that's the name of the method, is include with a question mark. And then in parentheses, you indicate which value you're looking for. So in our case, let's say that I want to look for the value 12, which we know is inside of the array. It will tell me true. But if I a.include question mark the value 1, 2, 3, 4, which is not part of the array, it will return the Boolean false. Finally, the question that was asked in class today was, is there a way for us to easily compute the sum of an array? And the answer is yes, although we will actually look at more efficient ways of doing this than what we'll do today. For today, what we're going to do is we're going to create a file, and we will, in that file, we will actually create a small program. So let's see, we're going to take our array A, which is right here, and then we will move it into our program. And then we're gonna create a simple loop for calculating the sum of the array. So we initialize a variable sum to the value of 0, as well as a variable index as a value of 0, which is going to allow us to march through all the values of the arrays. And then what we're going to say is we're going to say, let me save this first. We're going to say while index is less than a.length. In other words, as long as the index is between 0, where we start, and 8, which is the last number, the last index that is less than the length of the array, we will at that point add to the sum the content of the array at that index position. In other words, the first thing we'll do is a of 0, which will give us 34. And remember the shortcut that sum plus equal is sum equals sum plus. So as a comment, I will put sum equals sum plus a of index. And then, as we saw in class, let's not forget to also increment the index, so we are actually marching through all the values of the array. And then, once we're done, we can simply put the sum on the screen. At this point, if I exit from IRB and run my program, he will tell me that the sum is 115. And I haven't checked it, but there's no reason to believe that it will not be the case. And this concludes our lesson for today.